Most people are dumb.
Vice President Kamala Harris unveiling her economic agenda Friday.
For too many people, no matter how much they work, it feels so hard to just be able to get ahead.
The Democratic nominee in waiting pitching her plans to tackle the costs of food, housing, medicine, and childcare.
The bill
Most people are dumb. It took a while for me to really comprehend that, a lot of people are ignorant to how the world works around them, and they are not only oblivious, but they really don't care. As long as they get what they want, or they believe that demanding certain things will get them what they want, that's all they ultimately care about. Watch the end of the video to understand truly why most people are dumb and how this is going to have a horrific effect on us going forward, well after the presidential elections. So now let's begin. Today we're going to be checking out a video where Kamala Harris unveils her economic plan. And when you really understand the implications of this, then you realize why we're literally going to hell in a handbasket.
For many families, there's not much left at the end of the month.
Promising to address the issue at the top of voters' minds. Her plan includes an expanded child tax credit of up to $6,000 for families with newborns and up to $25,000 in down payment assistance for first-time homebuyers. Harris also saying she'll work with Congress to impose a federal ban on what her campaign calls price gouging in the food industry.
Most businesses are creating jobs, contributing to our economy, and playing by the rules. But some are not.
Former President Trump blaming Harris for rising inflation during his own event this week.
Something straight out of Venezuela or the Soviet Union.
The vice president using Friday's event to sharpen her attacks against her GOP rival and his own economic proposals.
It will mean higher prices on just about every one of your daily needs.
Harris's rollout comes as inflation drops below 3%, despite prices up nearly 20% compared to 4 years ago.
In the weeks to come, I will address in greater detail my plans to build an opportunity economy.
Now, guys, how did Venezuela go from being the richest country in the Western Hemisphere to one of the absolute poorest? This is a very interesting concept. Well, just a spoiler alert, part of it was through the regulation of just about everything, ranging from food to toilet paper and sanitary products. Let's jump at this article right now. How Venezuela fell from the richest country in South America into crisis. Overspending, low oil prices, and political unrest all combined to trigger a decline for the once prosperous nation. It wasn't long ago that Venezuela, which possesses the world's largest crude oil reserves, was a relatively stable democracy with one of Latin America's fastest rising economies. It was a nation so awash in petroleum revenues that the socialist government of the late former President Hugo Chavez spent huge amounts on social programs and at one point even provided free heating oil for impoverished Americans. But starting in 2014, the South American nation began suffering a startling collapse, with Venezuela's gross domestic product plummeting even more than the United States during the Great Depression. Many of its nearly 32 million inhabitants became unable to afford food, and resource-starved hospitals did not have enough soap and antibiotics. Meanwhile, Venezuela's political system spiraled into turmoil. President Nicolas Maduro, whose 2018 re-election was tainted by accusations of irregularities and voter intimidation, faced several street protests and survived a spring 2019 military uprising instigated by opposition politician Juan Guaido, leader of the elected National Assembly, whose legislative powers were taken away by Maduro's regime in 2017. how is it that Venezuela sank so far in such a short time? Scholars who've studied this country say its rise and fall was caused by a combination of factors. Venezuela has long been dependent on oil reserves, and the Bolivarian revolution of Hugo Chavez did not fundamentally alter the situation. The decline of oil prices, the massive social spending of the Chavez and Maduro governments, U.S. sanctions, and a combination of economic mismanagement and corruption at the top level have contributed to the economic collapse. Venezuela's crisis has been deepened by U.S. sanctions against the Venezuelan oil industry. In March, it also sanctioned the Venezuelan gold mining industry. And in April, it also imposed sanctions against the Central Bank of Venezuela, cutting off the institution's access to U.S. currency and limiting its ability to conduct international transactions, to put even more pressure upon Maduro's regime. Here are some more of the key moments in the saga. So they discovered oil back in 1922, and it's been gushing ever since. Venezuela begins gushing 100,000 barrels of oil per day, indicating the massive reserves beneath the nation's surface. Then dictator, there you guys go. Then dictator Juan Vicente Gomez allows more than 100 foreign oil companies into Venezuela, and by 1928, Venezuela becomes the world's second biggest petroleum exporter. Guys, what ultimately led to the collapse of Venezuela is that back in the 1990s, there was a lot of political turmoil and upheaval. Venezuela was extremely prosperous, but there were people in the country who said that, they could do more, because there are people there are people who are poor, there are people who are not able to, work and contribute to society the way others are able to. They're not benefiting from the prosperous nature of Venezuela, and more needs to be done. It's basically the same crap that we're seeing right now in places like California, where they're paying people $20 an hour to flip burgers. And these people basically began demanding a livable wage. So they began stealing from the rich to give to the poor. And then on top of that, they began taking over various industries. So they took over the power manufacturing. So, they basically took over that industry, and they said, now we're going to take control of it, and we're going to regulate the prices of energy. So, there's no real competition, because we control the energy in the country, and we're going to set the price for energy, and we can set it low. So right there you have mismanagement, and you have no competition, because they own the entire energy market. All right. Then they turn around and say, we're going to regulate the prices for everything in the country. Everything from food to toilet paper to aspirin. Everything is regulated, and you cannot sell your product here for more than this amount. It doesn't matter if it costs more to manufacture it, but there is no flexibility there. And this is basically what Kamala Harris is now promising to do. So they went and they did this, and eventually companies said, yeah, well, we're just not gonna sell our products here anymore. And they stopped selling food in the country. They stopped selling toilet in the country. They stopped selling sanitary products in the country. They basically pulled out. All right. And they were left with nothing. They were struggling. They had shortages of everything there. People were resorting to eating dogs, cats, rats, garbage. And then finally, Venezuela said, okay, well, all right, there was a black market. Things were very expensive on the black market. They said, fine, okay, we'll remove the price restrictions. Once they did that, we saw hyperinflation, extremely hyperinflation, to the point where people needed to walk around with bags of money to buy a simple loaf of bread. And people who had saved all of their lives in Venezuela, their money was now worth literally nothing. And the government, of course, Maduro, was extremely tyrannical. I had a friend living in Venezuela, so he told me what ended up happening. They started using Bitcoin, and even things like Ethereum to basically transact in the country, because their money was worth nothing. Now in Venezuela, everything is done using US dollars. and there has been some recovery. However, they went through extreme hardships, and a large portion of Venezuela's population fled the country and they went to other countries, specifically the United States. And it's already estimated that if Maduro remains in office, you know, around 3 to 4 million more Venezuelans will flee the country as well. When you start regulating the prices of everything, you basically stomp out competition. The manosphere is so powerful because as I've been discussing the subject, I have those of you that jump in and say, "Well, yeah, I agree. Well, they actually tried stuff like this in the U.S. before, and it was terrible." For example, I forget if it was Carter who tried doing this, where at one point they tried regulating the gas prices in the United States, and that absolutely failed because you ended up with places in the U.S. that had large amounts of gasoline and other places that had literally none. And there are actually like limitations, I believe, on the amount of gas that you're able to transport in your car and across state lines. So people had no gas, so they couldn't move their cars. So they've tried this type of nonsense before, and it's absolutely failed. But Kamala is promising that she's going to go after all these major companies, and she's going to regulate the prices of everything. That's socialism, 100% socialism. And most people are too dumb to realize that, when you do this, the value of, you're basically setting a scenario where you're going to experience hyperinflation and significant scarcity. For example, you're not only affecting the people who sell the food, you're affecting the farmers who grow the food. I've been warning for ages to stop messing with these white farmers. All right, they grow the majority of the food, and a lot of them are leaving right now. They are retiring, they're done, and they are walking away. Our food does not come from the supermarket. Our food comes from farms. Okay, it is not manufactured in a lab. It is not made in a factory or a warehouse. It is processed in a factory. It is processed in warehouses. It's stored in warehouses, but it is not made in a factory. All right, it has to be grown. Animals have to be raised. This is the reality that we live in, and most people don't care. When you look at the situation, for example, you pay people who work at McDonald's a livable wage. That doesn't result in higher wages for everyone else. That results in hyperinflation as now people who rent and so forth, they begin charging more. The prices of everything goes up and the value of money goes down. It's crazy, and there's some among you who just don't give a damn. You'll argue me under the table about why everyone deserves a livable wage, and why every job should pay a livable wage, no matter what kind of job it is. It's a level of stupidity, okay? And a livable wage varies by state. A comfortable wage to live in, for example, in a place like New York, is a minimum of 100,000. It's about 120,000. In a place like New York City, 120,000. In San Diego, it's not far off that. It's extremely high. Extremely high. And for example, I had an argument with one guy in the comments who was like, "Well, I have autism, and those fast food jobs are really the only kinds of jobs that I can work, and I have a right to a job. I have a right to a job, and I wasn't able to I haven't been able to easily get disability, but it's like I'm a human being too, and I have a right to work." And I'm thinking to myself, you don't have a right to anything. All right, if you're not able to provide efficient value to society, then you don't have a right to anything. It's the truth. This is what happens when you have capitalism and free trade. And don't get me wrong, we have serious problems with corporations and greedflation right now. Okay, and there are ways to deal with greedflation. There are a variety of different ways to deal with greedflation. For example, breaking up these monopolies. One of the reasons why companies are able to do the things that they do is because there's so much centralization of power. Right now, they're looking to break up Google. like split it into pieces. So for example, YouTube would become like another company. YouTube would become a company. You know, Google AdSense, so Google Search would become a company. And they're looking. The government wants to break it up, so they need to start going after these. They need to start going after these companies. You know, look at the phone the cellular carriers in America. We only have three. All these prepaid service plans, Metro, PCS, Mint Mobile, which is now owned by T-Mobile. Okay, T-Mobile bought out Metro. T-Mobile bought out Mint, and then they turn around and they basically raise the prices. All right, they're like, oh, it's still $15 a month. The $15 a month plan is not going to change. But what they don't tell you is that all the other plans get more expensive because most people can't live off 5 gigabytes a month. All right, so all the other plans become more expensive and fall more in line with what typical T-Mobile plans cost. And then they send you a notification telling you, hey, wink, wink, why don't you go and move over to T-Mobile? So for example, if you use something like Metro PCS and you're on Metro for a couple of months or for even a year, and they're like, oh, you're a good customer, you know, you have auto pay on, why don't you move over to T-Mobile to just let's call it a day? So this is basically, it's a monopoly. It's a 100% monopoly. All right, you know, T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, you know, they're basically a triopoly. Three companies control essentially the entire phone market. Okay, it's the rebirth of Ma Bell. All right, Ma Bell is back with a passion, and the solution is to break these companies up because they keep on consolidating. If you look at the entertainment space, you know what ends up happening is they're like profit, 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 and you can't. Eventually, you run out of consumers, you run out of ground. So what do? They basically sell themselves to another company. They're, you know, WB, you know, Warner Brothers. They run out of money. So what do? They end up selling. They sell themselves to another company that can absorb them. If Disney cannot absorb Warner Brothers, they find another company that does. They sell themselves to Amazon, for example. All right. And then Amazon also owns like what is it? I don't think it's Paramount, but they own another studio already. Basically, it's just consolidation upon consolidation upon consolidation. All right. How many gasoline companies do we have in the US? Not many. All right. We don't have choices anymore. Look at even our political parties. We have two. We have the illusion of choice. All right. And they're all basically, guys, you know, they say about elections, no matter who wins, we all lose. It's one, you know, it's one big club and we're not in it. You know, those were famous words from George Carlin. Famous words from George Carlin.
President teasing more details on her proposals as Democrats prepare to focus on the economy at their convention, which kicks off Monday.
The vice president in that speech acknowledging the disconnect millions of Americans are feeling as many still struggle with daily costs despite inflation cooling to its lowest level since the pandemic ended. The president has struggled to convince Americans his work on the economy is helping, and Harris is now inheriting that challenge.
Now, here's something interesting, guys. They're like, inflation is now cooling. When they say inflation is cooling, this is why I say most people are dumb. What you don't understand is that we're not experiencing deflation. We're not seeing prices going down. All right. Inflation went from 3% to 2.9%. All that means is that it went down 1 percentage point, and that the cost of product of things going up is not going up as fast as they were before. It doesn't mean the cost of prices are going down. It just means that prices are going up slightly less slower than they were before. So that means that the cost of McDonald's is going to continue to rapidly increase. The cost of gas is going to continue to rapidly increase. The cost of everything around us is going to continue to rapidly increase. When they say inflation is going down, it does not mean that prices are going down. It just means that they're going up they're going up slower. It's crazy. And it doesn't take a lot to understand this, but we're never taught these things. We're not taught how money works. We're not taught how money is created. We're not taught how money gets its value. It's basically just an IOU, and the central bank, our Federal Reserve, can print unlimited amounts of it. And they've been able to do that for years and get away with it because, of the petrodollar. Because the dollar was the reserve currency of the world, which is something that is now rapidly changing. It's a sick society that we live in. It's a very sick world that we live in. And it took me time to really understand that most people don't care. And they hear free money, and that's all they hear. They don't take the time to actually learn what's going on around us. And the boomers have basically given up. They failed. They're basically trying to make off with as much money as they possibly can right now. It was a crazy ride for them. It was one big party. They, just like Gen X doesn't care about your feelings, the baby boomers don't care about your future. They never have, they never will. The way they see it, and the way they've always seen it, is they won't be around to deal with it. All right? It won't be their problem. It'll be the problem of another generation. Be it the millennials, be it Gen X, be it a combination of the millennials, Gen X, Gen Z, or Gen Alpha or Gen Beta. They don't care. They don't care. They just want their money, and they just want to enjoy themselves as much as they can before they go off to hell. That's the truth. All right? They don't care. They never have, and they never will. They're a very selfish group of people. George Carlin warned us about this generation. All right? They've taken out so many loans against their children and their children's children, and they're waiting to and trust me, it'll be their children's children's children, children's children's children. All right, as soon as they arrive, because this is how these people roll. They did it to Gen X, they've done it to millennials, they've done it to Gen Z, they've done it to Gen Alpha, and they're just salivating in the mouth, knowing that they can do it to Gen Beta as well. And you have to understand that the boomers, their generation spanned 18 years. So we'll never fully be rid of them in our lifetime. They'll always be around. And right now, right now, it's actually younger people that are passing away faster than the boomers. The boomers are actually, they're rapidly ending up homeless and passing away homeless. But the groups of people that are passing away the fastest are young people right now. All right? Millennials, Gen Xers, and Gen Zers. All right? I wonder why this is happening. A lot of them are ending up with CANCER, and they don't, the science is like, we don't know why this is happening, but it's a very serious thing, but we don't have an explanation for this. I have a few theories, but I'm not able to actually discuss them here. But do you guys know where I do discuss them? I actually talk about them in my newsletter. I absolutely do. You should subscribe to my newsletter for my personal thoughts and insights, and also you get a free copy of my ebook, The Blueprint for Escaping the Rat Race, and you can click the link in the description to get your free copy. And by the way, guys, also don't forget to subscribe to the Angry Guy Clips channel, where we post shorter videos and video responses, and also the Angry Guy Live channel, where most of our live streams are. Both channels are linked in the description. I mean, guys, most people are dumb. They don't care. They could care less about your well-being, about your survival. They don't care. They don't understand the economy. They don't understand what you're doing. It's crazy. When I talk about the creator economy sometimes with you guys, and I say that these 9-to-5 jobs are going to be a thing of the past, we're already seeing it happening, where 9-to-5 jobs are rapidly disappearing. Many of you don't care. I talk about the gig economy, and I say the gig economy is oversaturated, as more people are trying to turn gig work into full-time work and live off it. You don't care. I say that you're going to have to move into the creator economy. We are moving into the creator economy. We're going to have to learn how to create value for others without depending on someone else to give you a job or to allow you to provide value and then receive value and then receive cash for it, like doing DoorDash. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to learn how to leverage the internet, how to market yourself using social media. These are things you're going to have to learn. There was this guy in the comments who was basically saying that, he's a PhD He has a PhD and a master's degree, and he's basically too good for YouTube. And I had to point out to him that there are tons of people on YouTube just like you. All right, you're nothing special, and he was still ignorant about it. And there's a lot of, and it's what angers me is that you can have someone with this level of education, and yet they're still dumb. They're still extremely dumb, and they will. These are the people who will want to destroy everything around us when they lose their jobs, and they believe that they are entitled to work. And it's like, bro, but I thought you're a PhD. You understand money. You understand everything, right? Right. So why, yeah, bro. The truth of the matter is that so many people today want handouts. All right. A nine to five job. Listen to me. We haven't lived in a fair world for a very long time. Expecting a 9 to 5 job for you, for a 9 to 5 job to be there for you, is a handout. And saying that you're gonna go and tear down society if you don't get what you want, that's so stupid. So stupid. That's not going to result in you getting more work, getting a job that you want. That's only going to result in creating a more hostile world around us and throwing away your life and your freedom possibly over stupidity, over some stupid job. Okay? Oh, angry, you don't understand. No, I understand. Life is hard. You're not entitled to anything. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself. This is something that most Gen Xers figure it out at a very young age. No one's going to give anything to you. No one's going to do anything for you, and no one cares about you. I remember, I posted a comment on my in my post section. YouTube actually renamed it from post to from community to post, which is interesting because on my other channel it's still called community. But I posted a comment. I was like, I'm not feeling so great. Gen X, give me some motivation. And it was basically because I knew exactly what Gen X was going to respond with, but I just wanted it for myself. And there was no kindness there. Most of it was not kindness. This is not the kind of kindness that you guys would expect. This is Gen X's kindness is very different. It was more along the lines of get back to work, get back to work. No one cares about you unless you're putting out content. Get back to work, get back to work. That's Gen X for you. All right? Because and that's their version of kindness, telling you that no one gives a crap about you. No one really knows your name like that, and you are only as valuable as the work that you produce. Welcome to the reality of the world. All right? And most people can't comprehend this. Most people cannot comprehend that you are not that important. You are not that special. No one owes you anything. You can go and throw your tantrum all you want. It's not going to benefit you. No one's going to come and rescue you. These jobs are gone forever. If you think that socialism is going to save you guys, I'm going to tell you something. There was a point when I ended up homeless, right? I was getting unemployment. And I was believing that they were going to renew it and all this crap, and that was back when Obama was in office. And I got screwed. I got absolutely screwed on the whole thing. And I was going to school and I was working on my education. And it's just what, guys, I regret so much even stepping foot in college sometimes because people like me are not supposed to go to college. People like me start multi-million-dollar companies that then become billionaires. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. And maybe I would have failed, but people like me don't go to school. People like me don't need school. All right? I'm just being realistic. After you finish high school, honestly, a lot of people middle school, you pretty much know what you need to know, and you go out there and you get the job done. I learn better outside of school than I do inside of school, and that's how it is for a lot of people, because you don't go to school to actually learn anything other than learning how to conform. All right, learning how to conform and be consistent. You go there learning how to be an employee, basically. I mean, think about the hours of school. You're in school from like from 8 to like 3 or 4 or 5. It's basically like a job. All right, you have to be at school by like usually 8, and then you get out around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So it's basically conditioning you to be a wage SLAVE. That's all it's doing. It's Rick and Morty has gone to hell. That series has really gone to hell. But something that Rick used to say, and it's so damn true. Rick used to say, school is not a place for smart people. It really isn't. It really isn't. I look back now, many of us Gen Xers, we look back now at people who didn't go to college. Instead, they went and learned a trade or started driving for UPS. And now, fast forward 20 years later, they own multiple properties. These are multimillionaires, and they're doing well. All right? They're doing well, driving not fancy cars, and all of us with our big educations and our masters and double masters and PhDs and how are we doing? We're not doing so great. All right? We're not doing so great at all. One of the worst mistakes we've also made was going and getting jobs for these large companies. That was a stupid move. You're basically helping another man to build his dream, and he could care less about you. All right? The key is to actually go and get a job at a smaller company, all right, and get a piece of that. But we're not taught these things. The boomers deliberately did not teach us anything about how money works or society because they wanted to turn us into wage SLAVEs. They wanted to control us. They didn't want us to ever have freedom. And that's why many of us now have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt that we can never pay back. But it's a waste of time blaming the boomers, blaming your parents, because these people will just turn around and blame their parents. It's a waste of time. All right? It's not you didn't create the problem, but it's still your problem to deal with. And that's something that you just have to learn in life. When you have these people who think that they deserve a livable wage, guys, these people don't care if the country goes to hell. They don't care. All right? They'll blame everyone around them. You have to understand most people are dumb. Most people are not informed. Most people don't want to be informed. And even if you try to inform them, they don't care. All right? You can tell them that, because, guys, they're operating based on feelings, not on facts. They're operating based on feelings. It's an unfortunate reality. A lot of people and a lot of men do it too, in today's society. A lot of people to the left, they operate entirely based on feelings. They basically say, they call socialism, they call communism kindness. It's not kindness, it's control. But they don't care. No matter how many examples you can show to them of how this thing has gone downhill, they don't care. All right? It's a sad reality. It's a sad, sad reality. But that's the reason why you have to be smarter. You have to be wiser. You have to be self-aware. You really do. You have to invest and you have to learn. The best investment is investing in yourself, learning new skills every single day and diversifying your portfolio. You need to create multiple streams of revenue, multiple streams of income. Do not depend on some 9-to-5 job. Do not depend on some side hustle. Wake the heck up. But a lot of you are asleep. You're asleep right now, and then you're going to blame everyone else around you and say that it's the fault of America. Guys, it's your own fault. You knew that this was coming, and you're going to act like, well, there's nothing I could have done. Really? There's a lot of things you could have done. You could have learned new skills. You could have learned how to build a business online. You could have learned how to leverage social media. You are lazy. You don't want to do these things. This is the reason why Gen X is going to kill it. Gen X is going to kill it over the next decade because they're the ones who are going to take the opportunities. Not are all Gen Xers going to do it? No, there's a lot of Gen Xers who are basically lazy and they just want to be left alone. They can go be homeless. But the other Gen Xers who understand how life is and that life is not fair, they're going to kill it. They're going to take everything. They're going to take what Gen Z should be getting because they're being shut out of the economy. They're going to be taking what a lot of the millennials should be getting because they're going to say that, oh, I'm too tired. I already have one job. I'm just going to keep on working this go nowhere job and hope for the best. Okay? You're going to be taking the jobs left behind by the boomers and getting what they're worth. Guys, what do you think regarding all of this? Do you agree? Most people are dumb. Let me know your thoughts and we'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.